Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I'd like to give you all a hearty hello and welcome to the Daughters of Valor Network podcast. It's been a little while, but I'm happy to be back and I hope to start recording and uploading regularly for this podcast. So, as you see in the title and in the description, today's topic will be discussing obedience and the power of obedience. So I would like to begin with the opening verse on obedience, which is coming from 1 Samuel 15:22 and 23. So it says, "Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to hearken than the fat of rams. For rebellion is as a sin of witchcraft, and stubbornness is as iniquity and idolatry." And this was Samuel the prophet speaking in regard to King Saul and his disobedience when God told him to slaughter all, I believe, of the Agagites. But Saul did something different and thought that he could appease God by offering a burnt offering or offering a sacrifice. And that's not exactly what God asked for. And so this is something that we can apply to our lives, why obedience is important and why it's necessary. So I'd also like to talk about obedience in regards to our purpose and what that really means. Can we truly find our purpose without first being obedient to God? Where do we get our purpose from? Who gives it to us? Is it something that because we're good at something, we think that that's our purpose in life? Or is that merely a talent to achieve a greater purpose? So let me know what you all think on that. I'd also like to talk about obedience in regards to procrastination and what that looks like and about God's overall purpose. So, as you all know and have seen by now, these podcast episodes are not very long, just a little food for thought to help you go about your day or throughout your day. So, circling back around to obedience and purpose. Ecclesiastes 12 and 13 says, "Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man." So right here, we have a purpose to fear God and keep his commandments. In that, every person, if we think about Moses, if we think about Christ, if we think about Joshua, um, even Samson, David, they weren't, everyone except for Christ, of course, was not perfect. But in all of our doings and through their obedience to God, you're able to figure out what their purpose was. Whether they were rulers, whether it's to save or deliver from Egypt, whether it's bringing salvation to all of mankind, that's a specific purpose. And so that's something that we will not find unless we're being obedient to God. And I have to say, even I struggle with that sometimes. I'm not perfect. Even doing this podcast after about 2 months, I was a bit nervous and coming back. But, I try to align myself in terms of obedience with God and always make sure that what I'm doing, my compass is facing north towards God, facing towards Him. So I had to get back on this podcast. So I wanted to speak about procrastination because it's so easy to fall into a trap and just say, "Oh, I'm going to do it later. Oh, I'm going to do it later," whatever that may be, whatever the task may be. It's so easy to get caught up in that cycle, and then you let limitations, you let anything hold you back. But that's not something that we should let hold us back because it's like a slippery slope. Once you keep pushing it, putting it off, you let fear, doubt, and the cares of the world get in the way. And then eventually you just don't even achieve that aspect of your purpose. So, and there's an example of that, a bit, kind of, indirectly in the Bible, where Christ in Matthew 21:28 through 31, he gives a parable of the two sons, the man that had the two sons. And he came to the first and told him to work a day in the vineyard. And the first son said that he wouldn't, but then afterwards he repented and went. And then he told the second and said likewise. The second one said he would go, but then he didn't. So the question that Christ asks is which one of them actually did the will of his Father? The one that said he wouldn't and then went, or the one that gave lip service and said that he would do it and did not? So who was truly obedient? And of course, and the Bible verifies this, it was the first son who at first said he would not do it, and then he went ahead and did it anyways and went and worked for the day in the vineyard. So, one thing we must understand is that God's purpose is greater than our emotions, greater than our thoughts, greater than our circumstances at the time, and certainly greater than what we perceive as our limitations. God is not limited by anything. And through Christ, all things are possible. We know that. So, yes, this is just something to think about, what obedience truly means. In the next episode, I hope to talk about masculinity versus femininity. Well, not even versus, because that's kind of how the society puts them against each other. Those are two completely and separate roles. Men and women are completely different, but they're meant to complement each other. So I kind of wanted to talk about image and who's representing it. And so that will be in the next segment. So please stay tuned. God bless you all. And thank you all for coming and tuning into this little mini episode for the Daughter of Valor Network on obedience and what it means to listen and to not be disobedient to God, because those can have repercussions not only for ourselves but also for others. And kind of a PS, because I forgot to add this in, it's like if you have something that you're meant to do, a part of your purpose, and you don't do it, that can kind of have a boomerang effect on others. Like there may have, if I didn't do this podcast today, maybe there's someone that was meant to hear it, and by me being disobedient, they may have missed the message, and then I might get in trouble later on. Or if I'm facing God and he's recounting my actions, that might be brought up. So that's something to be mindful of, how your actions can impact others. So, yes, thank you for coming in to the Daughters of Valor Network podcast. You all have a blessed day. Bye bye.